All right, what's good, everybody? What's good? What's good? Appreciate y'all for stopping by. This is episode number 31 of the Life of a Champ podcast. Today's topic is going to be hookup culture. One topic that I'm surprised that I haven't actually talked about it yet, and one of the topics that definitely needs to be talked about on this podcast. So here's the episode. I'm looking forward to talking about this topic, though. The first thing I want to talk about is going to be the societal influence. Let me go ahead and bring up my notes real quick. Is the societal influence, right? So when it comes to hookup culture, I feel like it's one of those things on the hidden agenda that I mentioned in one of my other podcasts. It's one of the things on the hidden agenda that everyone promotes, that most people promote. Then there's there's no there's very little support for things that aren't for hookup culture. Hookup culture is super popularized within society, and whether it's through the music or whether it's through celebrities, it's not as expressed, or it's not as well. Hookup culture is more expressed than, let's just say, like the regular family life. And like I had mentioned earlier with music, you see female rappers and male rappers. That's pretty much all they can talk about. There's very few rappers um, that actually talk about anything other than sexual promiscuity. Appreciate you for stopping by, Hazel. Appreciate it. But I know, like there's the artists like Meg The Stallion, Cardi B, Doja Cat. They usually talk about female promiscuity a lot, and same with some rappers like Drake, Lil Wayne. I can go on and on with the men that talk about uh, hookup culture essentially, but it's one of the things that I would say is on the hidden agenda and definitely holding everybody back and keeping them on a lower vibration, which is definitely not ideal if you want a society that's super fully developed. But it is what it is. So another thing that I see is um, through a lot of what's popular with men's content, especially on YouTube. So I've been in this self development space for about 4 or 5 years now, and a majority of the YouTubers that are like for male improvement have to do with um, pretty much hookup culture in any way possible. Whether it's what they call spinning plates, or whether it's just just getting status and acquiring money and building something up just to have as many sexual options. It's a super big thing within the male self improvement space, and I've seen as of probably about, I want to say, about 6 months. For 6 months, I kind of seen myself getting turned off by that content, and being more attracted to content that's going to talk about more of the family unit, talking about finding a partner instead of just having this overabundance of um, sexual options. Which, like I said, I feel like every man or woman should definitely strive to have as many sexual options as they can when it comes to having that available, but not accessing that. So, like for a man, right? I think he should do everything in his power to build himself up to the point where he can have many sexual options. Same with the woman. For the most part, you really don't need to build yourself up. All you have to do is really look good, and you'll have a large abundance of sexual options. But I feel like men and women should definitely get there and try to do that as much as they can, but they shouldn't indulge within the act of hooking up, because it's honestly one of the biggest degenerative activities that you can possibly do, and people downplay the importance of it. They think it's something that could just exist and there's no consequence, when in reality there is a bunch of consequences. ex- yeah, for both genders. Honestly, there's a bunch of consequences when it comes to hooking up and indulging within that pleasure. So another thing with the YouTube space and also TikTok, you also see a lot of women talking about this as well. They talk about, oh yeah, I have a body count of, let's just say, like, I don't know, like 100 or 200 or something ridiculous like that. They talk about it and they're like proud of it, and it's like, you know what? Do you? To each their own, realistically speaking. But at the end of the day, like, should you really be proud of that? I would say not. I would say there's really nothing to be proud about. Same thing with men. They over glorify the body count, and they're like, "Oh my god, my body count's 1,000. Oh my gosh, like I'm so cool." Like, no, you're not. You're really not. And men could definitely get away with having that, which I talk about in another podcast. Men could definitely get away with it a little bit more, but the women doing it and feeling that sense of empowerment from having a high body count, I really don't understand it. If you're trying to attract the other gender, you're definitely doing the complete opposite of attracting that gender. So I think that's something that's interesting as well. Because, like I said, I've seen the TikToks on it, and like I said, whether it's men or a woman doing it, um, like I said, pretty much just harping on the fact that they have a high body count. I think it's honestly super goofy. Um, but another thing that really plays a part into it is dating apps as well, which I also think is pretty interesting. Dating apps, for the most part, most people on dating apps are not looking for a relationship. I would say more women on dating apps are definitely looking for a relationship. Would I say that's probably the best option for looking for a relationship? I would say no. Most men are on dating apps for short-term pleasure, like I said, just trying to hook up at the end of the day, right? So I feel like that's what dating apps is mostly used for. Of course, there's the minority that find a relationship, live happily ever after. But for the most part, I think it's for short-term interactions. And for the most part, women don't even entertain. Majority of women don't even entertain the amount of options they have, anyways, on dating apps because, well, maybe one, they can't, but two, because it's just too much. But yeah, that definitely plays a part in hookup culture, in terms of contributing to it. And another thing with the dating apps is it pretty much makes you only rely on the physical. It's really hard to really get to know somebody based off of a few pictures and a bio. Like, let's be honest, right? So it makes you focused on the physical way more than you should when it comes to meeting somebody. I feel like you should be putting a lot of time and attention on the type of character that they are um, before they're actually worthy of seeing you. If I'm gonna be honest with you, right? There should be a lot of getting to know you before um, you hang out. Whether, like I said, just evaluate whether this person is actually worth your time or not. So there's more of a superficial aspect of dating apps, which I don't think that is great for dating long term. But yeah, another thing is this: when it comes to hookup culture, what does it really do to men? So I had mentioned earlier that it has an effect on men and women, but what does that look like for men? Hookup culture, I think it makes it makes you devalue women in a weird way because you do value them. And honestly, I would say a lot of men within hookup culture like pedestalize women, but they pedestalize them for the wrong reasons. And it's like I said, it's all superficial. I feel like once you are so deep into hookup culture as a man, you start to see women as sexual objects rather than actual people, which is so bad for the mind, so bad for a lot of different reasons. But you literally see women become sexual objects instead of actual like people, and and if you're a woman and you're pursuing men that are still in that mindset, you should not expect anything less than to get used. Honestly, if you have any other expectation other than that, I think it's unrealistic. So you definitely should evaluate if going on dating apps is worth it, and just like anything, you should be evaluating for motives. That's something that I mentioned in my what podcast was it? Can men and women be friends? Women should definitely evaluate the motives of the person they're talking to, just to evaluate if they want to be your friend or not, but evaluate what exactly is wanted out of that interaction. For a woman, what does it do? What does it do to women? So through my perception, give me one second. Through my perception, I feel like it lowers their value. If they indulge within hookup culture, I would say they're going to be less desirable to majority of men. If a man knows that you've indulged within hookup culture, they're going to, if they know for sure, if you tell them, they're going to be less attracted to you than they were before. That's for sure. And there's also this false sense of female empowerment within it. as well, because you have women that are really getting their self worth from hookups, which, like I said, is it's not a good long term solution. It's very very short term thinking, very hedonistic view of the world, which, like I said, is definitely hindering to the value of that person and hindering to their long term perception of what they want. What else did I have? Yeah, you should never seek your self worth from a degenerative activity. And same thing with men. I feel like men that indulge within hookup culture and you know, sometimes it's going to go great for you for a man, and sometimes it's going to be a less than ideal when it comes to looking for hookups. But those moments where you don't have as many hookups and that's what you're looking for, your sense of self-worth honestly goes down. You become more depressed, you become more honestly, it honestly even consumes your mind a little bit more than it probably should, because that's what you're that's the state of mind that you're in. So not only does it bring down your self-worth, when in reality it should never even come from that place, but it also is going to consume your mind a lot more than it probably should, which majority, I would say majority of men, it consumes their mind a ridiculous amount. So it is what it is. But that's definitely going to be the effects on men and women when it comes to hookup culture. Another thing I want to talk about is this. Give me one second. So I recently watched a podcast. It was yesterday. It was of Michaela Peterson and Jordan Peterson. If you know me, you know I really appreciate the content that they produce. But one thing they talked about in this podcast was hookup culture, actually, which is part of the reason why I wanted to talk about it today. But I love something that Jordan Peterson said, and I never really thought of it this way, but it's true. He said there's no difference between hookup culture and masturbation. There's realistically no hookup culture. There's realistically no difference within those two, because at the end of the day, they're very short term hedonistic viewpoints of an ideal, and they're not a great term. They're not a long term solution to the problems that you have. So I thought that was interesting because you're just using somebody else's body, and obviously that person's using your body as well, but there's really no difference. There's really no difference when it comes to masturbation, because it's not fulfilling. It's not going to really do anything for you. It's just going to be um that 10-minute high, and then from there it'll be done, which I think is honestly, it's honestly goofy. The way he put it was a little interesting, but I was like, you know what? He's actually onto something. He's actually onto something. So I thought that was different. But definitely very very interesting, I would say. Um, Another thing with this with hookup culture, I feel like it breeds an inherent sense of lost value, and I feel like there's an element of shame. There's an unconscious shame that goes into it, which I think people don't talk about. People only talk about the upsides within hookup culture instead of the downsides. Which, like I said, if you're watching this podcast, um, I pretty much have demonstrated more of the negative of hookup culture than there are positive. But like I said, in society, do you really see anyone talking negative on hookup culture? For the most part, no. They're more for it. But there's a lot more negatives in my opinion than there are positives. Are there positives? Yes, there are, and I'll give you my opinion on the positives because I want to give you the entire full view, which I'll do. Just give me a few minutes, but there's definitely some positives. But at the end of the day, there's definitely way more negatives. There's definitely way more negatives. So another thing I want to talk about with hookup culture is how there's so much risk um, with not only exchanging your energy with another person, which, like I said, if you do that multiple times, it's not going to be the best for you. You're going to feel drained. You're not going to feel as happy. You're not going to feel as, like I mentioned earlier, fulfilled. But you also have the risks of STDs and pregnancy, unwanted pregnancy, which is is the consequence of just having sex excessively, anyways. So those right there don't definitely need to be taken into account. And like I said, do you even really see that many people talking about that in society? I personally don't, and those problems exist, and they happen a lot more often than people give them credit for. So, and especially with things like the way abortion's going and stuff like that, you definitely should be more conscious of the decisions that you're making, whether you want to do hookup culture or whether you don't. Um, yeah, definitely you definitely got to be aware. Definitely got to be aware for sure. And like I had mentioned, it's a short-term solution. It's short-term hedonistic view, and if you're looking for something of meaning in this life, that should be something you don't pursue. And it's like I said, it's really not worth pursuing. Do I feel like you have to kind of go into a phase of that to really get the full realization of that? I feel like you might have to an extent, to get the full picture. But for the most part, it's like I said, if you just take if you, it's so much easier to take somebody's word for it than to actually go ahead and do it yourself and learn the lesson. Um, but some people like to learn the lesson the hard way. I'm personally not one of those people that like to learn lessons the hard way. I'd rather learn from other people's mistakes. Um, but yeah, I think that's definitely interesting for sure. And now we get into the positives, right? The positives of hookup culture, right? Very few. Short. The list is very short in my opinion. But the positives of hookup culture are you get experience, sexual experience, which definitely can be valuable um, to please your partner, right? And then you also have things like what did I write down? You get to know what you like and what you don't like, and you get a more clear picture on what you're looking for out of a partner, not only physically but just by dealing with men or women in the short term. You kind of see their actions, and like I said, what you're attracted to and what you're not attracted to. For the most part, it's going to be mostly superficial, but there's going to be elements like, I don't know, consistency, how you would like a communication to be, maybe even dealing with some type of problems. There's certain things like that that you learn from those interactions, even though they are mostly short term. But you get to evaluate what works and what doesn't work for you, which I would say is decently valuable. Can you learn those lessons without having to go through hookup culture? I would say yes to an extent. But yeah, those are going to be some of the positives. And yeah, for the most part, that's going to be all the positives when it comes to hookup culture. Appreciate you guys for stopping by. Make sure you leave a comment if you have any questions or if you have anything in particular that you want me to talk about. But for the most part, I think I covered the majority of when it comes to hookup culture. Go ahead and let me know if um, you agree, disagree. What is your viewpoint? Let me know. All right. Yeah, it's definitely interesting to see how brainwashed society is, and it's interesting to see how it's getting produced to the younger crowds. The younger crowds think this is okay, and it's gonna corrupt a lot of people, and it already has corrupted a lot of people, in my opinion. But especially the younger minds, the younger, more impressionable minds, are definitely going to get. They're gonna have to learn that lesson the hard way because there was no one there giving them the content that they should have got. And another thing I will say is for women, right? Another thing I see is they do it out of like rebelling. There's this like a sense of rebelling that gives them almost motivation to do it because a lot of things are telling them not to do it, and for whatever reason, I feel like men and women definitely see this on both sides, but I see it more particularly with women is when they're told not what to, they're told what not to do, they want to do that even more. Which, like I said, there's that sense of rebelling. But yeah, let me know what you guys think. Let me know what you guys think. And yeah, I definitely started a little bit earlier today. Just had some things going on in my life where I need to take care of that. So I started the podcast a little bit early today. But yeah, Yeah, let me go ahead. Let me go ahead and see what you guys have to say about that. Make sure you leave a comment. And then just to let you guys know, I also posted some more TikToks. So if you're interested in hearing the podcast in short form, I have it posted on TikTok for the most part. I have it on YouTube as well, which I want to say one of my videos had like 300 views on YouTube, which is pretty good. And then I do it on Instagram as well. So all of my links, all of my usernames are going to be the same. It's just Life of a Champ podcast. Like I said, on TikTok, YouTube, and Instagram. So if you want to follow me, go ahead and do that. But I just started posting TikToks. I want to say maybe like 2 weeks ago. I have about I think about 8 videos up now. So yeah, if you do want to say what's good on there and see what clips that I've chosen out of the podcast, make sure you go ahead and stay tuned in for that. There's definitely some good ones I have coming up as well, which I'm looking forward to putting the next batch. I want to say I posted 3 today, but yeah, there's definitely some good moments that are worth watching in my opinion. Um, so that's why I did it on short form as well. Plus, that's the best way to grow right now if you're a content creator. So that's definitely something I'm striving to do. Also, if you know anybody that knows how to video edit and do things like that, make sure you let me know. And I'm trying to get more people to have edit for me. So if you know anybody, make sure you let me know, and I can reach out to them. But if you're rewatching this, make sure you leave a comment if you like any of the things that I mentioned today, or if you have any questions about my opinion on any of these things, I will respond to you. So make sure you go ahead and leave a comment on that as well. Yeah, but just reiterating on some things. Hookup culture, you see it really prevalent within culture in general, I would say. More importantly, I would say rappers, female and male rappers, you see them promoting that. Well, majority of what they promote, anyways, is a hedonistic lifestyle in general, but just indulging in it because they can, because they have the money to. But you see that happen within, like I said, women rappers and men rappers. It's not just men. For a while, it was just men, but you see females start to do it a lot more, which leads to a bunch of different things. But there's definitely some positives to music like that, but there's definitely some negatives, I would say, for sure. And then one of the things I also wanted to mention is how hookup culture is so prevalent within social media right now. So TikTok, you see a lot of people talking about body count. It's a huge thing right now, and just how hooking up is so socially accepted right now. Like I said, when in reality it probably should be looked down upon, especially if you're just giving your body up to people that aren't worth it realistically, just to get that, like I said, short-term high that only lasts so long. But you see it on Instagram as well, and you see it on YouTube as well. I would say I see it within the men's content that I consume, or content that I used to consume rather. They talk about how it is so idealistic when in reality it's not bringing any meaning to this life. It's not what you should be doing. It's not how you should be spending your energy, because you have a limited amount of energy, right? So you should not be giving your energy to people who don't deserve it. That's rule number one of life. Don't give energy to someone that doesn't deserve it. So, um, with that being said, be very choosy. Be very choosy, because you have to be choosy. Um, like I said, it's more worth your time. And then there's going to be consequences for men and women when it comes to hookup culture. For men, they're going to be it's going to be hard to disassociate women from the short-term pleasure, and that's very hindering, because women are much more than just objects. And if you're a man indulging within hookup culture, eventually your perception will be looking at women as just objects. And like I mentioned, there are much more than that. So, with that being said, you definitely got to get over that viewpoint, because that mindset is not healthy. And for women, the effects on women that it has, Hookup culture has a profound effect on women as well because it lowers their value, in my opinion, and it's not great for long term mating as well. If you're trying to, if you're a woman and you're eventually wanting to look for a partner long term, um, indulging within hookup culture is not going to be the route to go, because men are going to see you as less desirable for the most part. Of course, there's going to be exceptions to the rule, but if the man knows that you indulge within this hedonistic pleasure, for the most part, he's not going to really look at you in the highest light. That's for sure. And when given the option between a woman that hasn't done that and a woman that has done that, he's definitely going to choose the woman that hasn't. Um, like I said, of course, there's exceptions to the rule, but for the most part, that is the way majority of men view it. So, and then also you see both men and women's self worth come from um, hookup culture as well. They get caught into the lifestyle, and it becomes the way that they recognize if they're worthy or not. When in reality, your self worth should come from many other streams. But like I said, for men, if you are indulging within hookup culture and then all of a sudden you have a dry spell, you're going to really start to question your whole life based off of one area of your life. Just because you're not getting as much hookup culture or as much hookups as you once did, you're going to really look down upon yourself. And same thing with women, um, which I would say it's not really about how many you get. It's about, um, at least speaking for women, it's about the quality that you get. So yeah, and definitely, there's definitely this thing that needs to be taken into account. You need to be focused on the quality, not quantity. That's for sure. And the second that anyone starts to tell you anything different, um, they're hooked. Dude, they're hooked into uh, a culture that's degenerative. So if you're not looking to be in a degenerative society or degenerative mindset, like I said, evaluate the motives of that person that's trying to tell you that. But for the most part, like I said, I've laid it all out for you. Another thing is um, the false sense of male and female empowerment. You should not be liberated by the amount of sex partners you have. It's ridiculous. Um, like I said, that is a small aspect. For women, for example, it lowers your value. So you could say you're empowered by it, but in the realistic aspect, you're gonna feel less than what you would if you didn't indulge within that. And if you're a man, there's a false sense of male empowerment because men, for the most part, don't talk about the negative aspects of hooking up with multiple women. They just talk about, oh my god, it's like the greatest thing ever. When in reality, you're not gonna, or you should be looking to have a family eventually, and you should be looking for women that are going to be of higher value, and the women that just give it out for $3, or who give it out for absolutely nothing, and are, like I said, are also on that same vibration of just trying to give it out whenever, for whatever. Um, that's not a high quality woman, and the more you indulge within lower quality women, the more low quality you're going to be, and it's as simple as that. When you surround yourself with lower quality people, the lower quality you become. The second you start to surround yourself with higher quality people, the higher quality you become. It's as simple as that. That's not only within hookup culture, but that's prevalent within just life in general. And then I also want to talk about how there's shout out to Jordan Peterson, how there's no difference between masturbation and indulging within hookup culture. There's pretty much no difference, except that you are spending it with a woman, but your intentions realistically are still the exact same and are still very very superficial um, when it comes to your view on your sexual relations, which should not be should not be that way realistically. Um, and like I had mentioned earlier, there's going to be an inherent shame, an inherent value loss that not exactly you're gonna feel it, but you're not gonna really. It's not gonna be like shown in your face, but it's gonna be like a inside feeling that you're going to have that maybe I should be looking for something more than this. Especially because the people become so temporary. It's never great to have temporary people in your life, right? Um, You never find fulfillment in temporary friends, do you? In anything temporary in this life, if it's really that great, it shouldn't be temporary. Of course, situations happen, and some things are more temporary than others. But at the end of the day, you should be pursuing things that are not going to be temporary. Whether it's people, whether it's situations, you should not be looking for temporary situations. And also, the risk factor of hookup culture, like I said, that is STDs and unwanted pregnancy. So if you're a person indulging within this, it's only a matter of time before it happens, or you're going to have scares, or you're going to have whatever. There's unneeded and unwanted anxiety and unwanted results when it comes to that. So if you're a person that's trying to avoid having those things, hookup culture is definitely not the way to go. That's for damn sure. Um, but like I said, of course, you got to mention the good aspects of hookup culture, which is going to be just, I would say, some type of self awareness. For the better or for the worse, you're going to have a higher sense of self awareness, um, in knowing exactly what you want, and what you're looking for out of a partner. Um, so I would say that's a positive aspect, but for the most part, that's going to be about it. Um, is a great Hookup culture is a great short term plan if you are planning short term. For the most part, everyone should be planning long term. So at the end of the day, it's not the way to go. It's not the way to go. That's for sure. And I do feel like some of these things you have to just learn it the hard way to really get that super developed opinion. You can hear me all day, but if going through it is what needs to happen, then you're gonna go through it, and then eventually you'll come to the conclusion of this video. So at the end of the day, like I said, I'm not for hookup culture. It's very degenerative, and like I said, it's society's right now brainwashed because they think that's a super acceptable thing to do. You know what? Like I said, to each their own at the end of the day. But like I said, it depends what you're looking for in this life. If you're looking for something more in this life than just a 20-second high, then you should be looking elsewhere. Um, but yeah, definitely interesting to see how society views this because they're just letting it happen. They're just thinking that this is okay. And there's a lot of men right now who are getting that are wasting their energy on women that are not worth it. And even if you're a higher status man, if you're still wasting your energy off these women that don't really have any value, what are you doing? What are you doing? You're not cool. And a lot of people like to think that they're cool when in reality they're really not that cool. I see plenty of YouTubers and plenty of celebrities that indulge within that, and that's not something that's admirable. It's not an admirable quality. Having the option to get many women is an admirable quality, but indulging within all those women and not being able to find a wife, that's not an admirable quality at all. At least in my opinion. But like I had mentioned, it also depends on what you're looking for in this life. But if you're a man, most of your what you're looking for should be long term. Same thing with a woman, honestly. Should be long term thinking. And especially because this is such a short term period in your life, anyways. Um, so you should be really focused on things that are worth focusing on, which is the long term. What's going to make you happy in the long term? Because there's lessons to be learned. There's lessons to be learned in this in that culture. So, like I said, you could just take my word for it, or you can go ahead and experience it for yourself and see how less than gratifying that is long term. But yeah, for the most part, that's pretty much all I have to say. If you're in here right now, I appreciate you for stopping by. Make sure you leave a comment. If you're watching this podcast, like I said, make sure you leave a comment as well regarding some of the things that I had mentioned. Or if you have any questions or want my opinion on something, make sure you leave a comment on that as well. I'll be having another podcast probably tomorrow. Um, just listening to some music, chopping it up, which have been pretty good, I would say. I had like 5 or 6 people the entire time last time, which was really nice. Like I said, just chop it up, listen to some music. I usually be playing some good music, and I'm also taking recommendations from people as well. So if you want to hear a certain song and get my live reaction to that song, make sure you hop into that chat tomorrow because that's always gonna be really really fun. So I'm probably gonna go live around probably about 7 or 8 tomorrow. But yeah, should be a great time though. Should be a great time. Also got the Suns or not the Suns. Man, tragic. Man, man, I can't believe that. They got the Celtics game and the Warriors game, game 4 tonight. It'll be something I'm looking forward to as well. Should be talking about sports very, very soon here. Just to wrap up the finals. Whenever that's over, I'll give you my full basketball analysis for the year. And also going to be talking about next year as well, because honestly, that's all I'm looking forward to, anyways. At the end of the day. Ah, but go yeah. Just to recap one more time before I end it off. So there's for hookup culture, there's going to be a societal influence that's influencing the masses, right? And it's really going to be hindering on the people that are coming up within society right now. When it comes to the younger generation, you see a lot of the younger generation thinking that this is okay and thinking this is the way to go because they see people that they admire or who are they think they're cool. They're just going to copy they're just going to imitate what they see. And if you're a person that has status like that, you should be pursuing what is meaningful to you. And if especially if you are someone who has influence, you should not be showing them the wrong side of what actually is worth it in this life. One thing I want to mention is, like you said, you have the rappers and men and women that are rappers that are promoting this lifestyle as well. Shout to Future. She belongs to the street. She belongs to the streets, man. Hey, that's hookup culture in one phrase right there. She belongs to the street. You know who also belongs to the streets? Future belongs to the streets as well. But with that being said, uh, you got female rappers and male rappers talking about how hooking up with multiple partners is so nice and it's so gratifying and so fulfilling when in reality it's not. It's you're pursuing short-term pleasures, and like I had mentioned earlier, if you want something that's actually meaningful in this life, you should not be pursuing that. For men, I want to say they've been talking about that for years, like I don't know, like 20 something years, right? But maybe even more than that. When it comes to women, or definitely more than that, actually, maybe like 40 years now. Um, for women rappers talking about that, as I know, I'm probably about like maybe 10 years. I maybe like 10, 15 years. But it's definitely not as long as men. Men have been doing this way longer when it comes to rapping about it, but it's definitely not great for the younger generation. And then also want to talk about the YouTube and TikTok influence. You see people who have a high following talking about these things and promoting this lifestyle of hookup culture, and they're trying to make it have like an idealistic point of view when in reality, like I mentioned earlier, it's not idealistic. If it's anything, it's anything besides idealistic, in my opinion. And for me, I'm just slowly getting. I got rid of majority of the content that is degenerative in that regard. But there's going to be a lot of the male self improvement space that I consume so much that talk about um, hooking up with multiple women and giving this message out to young men who are pursuing women, and they think that's cool to have multiple women. When in reality, if you just have one solid woman as a man, you're good. You're good. That's all. That's realistically all you need. Um, but pursuing multiple women, that's too much headaches and that's too much dispersed energy, too much wasted energy that is needed to have wasted. But that's just my opinion. And then, like I mentioned earlier as well, you see female talking about this as well on TikTok. That's mostly where I see it, is on TikTok, where they talk about how they have like a body count of 200, and that's like okay, and they're like proud of it, and like Well, you just got rid of all the options on TikTok that you possibly could have had when it comes to high status men, because high status men are not going to be looking for that out of their woman. So if you had any high status men that you were talking to at that point in time and you posted a video like that, congratulations, you just lost all the options you possibly had. But clap it up for you.
She belongs to the streets.
You belong to the streets now. But going back into what I was saying, there's also the dating apps that have this viewpoint as well. Was good. I appreciate you for stopping by. Appreciate you for stopping by. But getting into what I was saying, yeah, make sure you also leave a comment. I'm pretty much just going through everything right now. But yeah, one of the things I wanted to mention is dating apps and how it plays. Is Yusuf? What's good, Yusuf? I appreciate your stopping by, man. We're talking about hookup culture today. Um, I was going to talk about how dating apps play a big role when it comes to hookup culture, and I also want to know your opinion on hookup culture. If you can go ahead and give it to me, because that was the topic for today. Um, but for going back to what I was saying, the dating apps, right? Dating apps play a huge part in hookup culture because it allows you to have multiple options, and not only have multiple options, but it also gives you a more superficial view on those people because you only get to see a select few pictures and a very small bio to really explain who that person actually is. So automatically off the jump, shit's too easy, he said. Okay. Um but going back to what I was saying, you start off having it really like I said, it's easy. But if you're chasing anything in this life, everything that's worth chasing in this life is on the other side of easy, my boy. That's just what it comes down to. Uh, but what I was saying is dating apps, they let you have this superficial viewpoint on a person. Like I said, whether it's a man viewing a woman, they're gonna pretty much see that person as an object rather than an actual person. And you should never be evaluating anybody for you should never be evaluating anyone in this life for a superficial reason, and that pretty much is dating apps in itself, especially with women. I want to say only four. I read a study on this that only 4% of men on dating apps are viewed as attractive by women. So the selection that women are going to have is going to be very small, anyways. Even though they have an abundance of options, they're only going to pick a very small minority of those men, anyways. And for the most part, those men are going to be looking for a hookup. So that's pretty much how those dating apps play a part into hookup culture. Another thing is that what does it really do to a man at the end of the day, right? Like I mentioned, if especially if you have a very superficial temporary mindset, your men are going to view them as objects. They're not going to be viewing them as people, which is so sad to say because it honestly shouldn't even make any sense. Um, because that's your people for crying out loud. So it shouldn't. That's not the way it should be. And then for women, you lose value and you get your sense of self worth from a degenerative activity like sex, or like temporary sex, right? And especially with women, they should definitely be very conscious of what is their self worth because I feel like a lot of their self worth is superficial. That's just through my perception. Um, as far as what they view their self worth as, I've had plenty of conversations with women, and one common trend is their self worth doesn't come from like things they work on. It comes from things like, and maybe it's the quality woman I'm talking to, but or I've talked to, but it doesn't come from things that like men. For example, like the ways that some men get their self worth is by putting in work and building themselves up. For the most part, it's going to be for women, right? It's going to be a lot of superficial things. That's a lot of the reasons they give for what's actually their sense of self worth, whether it's their beauty, whether it's like I said, indulging within short term pleasures. It's nothing with substance. There's only few women that I've met in this life, sadly, that actually have substance behind that are more than just than honestly more than just looks, and know that there are more than just looks. But yeah, that's just my perception. Sadly, it's that, but that is just what I view within society because that's the type of quality of people that they're producing in society, mass for the masses, right? Another thing I want to talk about is like I said, the false sense of female and male empowerment. Yeah, the false sense of female and male empowerment within society today. It's interesting to see how women are getting their validation from men in that way, and once they stop getting it, it's the whole world's falling down. When in reality, it shouldn't be that way. Same thing with men. If they're hooking up with plenty of women, and one day, women stop texting you back, you lose all your options, then you feel like shit, and that's not how this life should be. You should not be. You should not get your sense of self worth from a temporary action. Um, but yeah, moving into the next thing. Um, there's going to be an inherent shame and value loss within within the way you perceive yourself when it comes to indulging within hookup culture. There's going to be a shame thing because at the end of the day, for damn sure you're going to want more than just temporary sex in one point in your life. So there's going to be a shame factor, and there's going to be a value loss, especially if you're a woman. Most men value women that have a low body count, and I'm speaking for most men, and that's not a ridiculous statement, hopefully. But yeah, there's going to be a value loss there. And also with the risk factor when it comes to hookup culture, you have things like pregnancy or unwanted pregnancy at that, and you also have things like STDs, which are definitely not ideal when it comes to the way you live your life. Um, so those are some big consequences for indulging within an act like that, which happen a lot more often than people give credit for, which is why I feel like they should be talking about that a lot more, and it'll be more of like to be weary of indulging within hookup culture. But like to end the podcast, I'm gonna let you know the positives, which like I said are only about one or two things. The positives of hookup culture, which is going to be getting experience and also getting to know what you like and what you don't like. That's it. Can you definitely become clear on those things without hookup culture? I think you can, but for the most part, that's going to be it when it comes to the benefits of hookup culture. Like I said, it's not bringing you meaning. It's not bringing you any real value outside of 10 minutes. But um, but yeah, at the end of the day, like I said, you should be chasing everything in this life. Um, you should be chasing long-term gratification, right? Because you should be focused on the long term always. Because the short term, you don't want to cash out right now. You see a lot of people cashing out right now, whether it's sexually, whether it's mentally, whether it's physically. They're cashing out right now when in reality they shouldn't be. But yeah, other than that, that's pretty much how I wanted to end the podcast off. Like I said, when it comes to hookup culture to me is toxic and should be avoided if you can, which you can. So it should be avoided. But other than that, I appreciate everyone for stopping by. Like I said, if you're watching this, make sure you leave a comment. And other than that, this was episode number 31 of the Life of a Champ podcast, talking about hookup culture. So, like I said, I appreciate you guys for watching, and I hope you guys have a good rest of your night. And just for one last time, shout out to Future.
She belongs to the street.
You belong to the streets. Congratulations, you played yourself. But other than that, you guys have a good rest of your night, and I look forward to doing the live stream on Saturday, as well as the next podcast is going to be on Wednesday of next week. So stay tuned in for that. And like I had mentioned, hope you guys have a great rest of your night.